Okay, good morning, Zion of. This class will be dedicated to Refuah Shlema of. Didn't quite get the name.
I don't know. Let's see. I have it written down. I don't even
Well,
I don't remember it myself.
Use your English name.
Yeah. Well, it's Yael Gutterman. She was Janet way back in Minnesota when we, 45 years ago when we came from there and blew into 899. A lovely girl who's lived here for about 30 or 40 years. This is important. It's exploratory for ovarian cysts and just I don't want to give TMI too much information, but it's in about an hour and a half. The operation here at Asuta, and it's serious enough that that a Chabad Rav said yes, go ahead with it during the 9 days. So we those of us who love her just
repeat her name again.
Well, let's see, it's on. You know what? Look it up on the chat when we get off.
Do that. I cannot do that.
It's on the chat.
Can you please
excuse
repeat
me?
it? Look at the chat at the same time. Can you please repeat it?
No, I can't repeat it because I didn't say it once because I can't remember it. I'm so sorry. Please look it up on the chat. I'm afraid if I go. I'm afraid if I go.
Just repeat her English.
I'll go off and come back on. Sure, no problem. Thank you.
All right, then we'll start, and you'll jump in when you can. But the English name can be used. It's often used with people. There's no trace of the Hebrew name, and her name was Yoel. And she should have a refuah shlema. This operation should be totally successful. I'm ahead of myself. Hayom yoyim. Tangled up in wire here. Hayom yoyim. 7th of Menachem, very short. He tells us that we're on the third letter today. We're starting the third letter in Geras HaKodesh. And the first one, where he says, Paischim b'brocha. Let's open up with a brocha. That letter was written 10 years before the second letter, which we learned yesterday, Ketanti Mikol HaSodim, which was written 10 years later upon the release of the Alter Rebbe from prison. So he begins with a brocha. Remember, the brocha was all about emunah, and the second one was about making yourself small in the face of all kindnesses, and that's what he wrote about his gratitude to Hashem for giving him the kindness of releasing him from prison, which was the beginning of the dissemination and the growth of Chabad Hasidus as we know it. So let me. Go ahead, Manucha. You take yourself off mute.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Sorry. It's Yael Perach Bas Lotti.
Perach with a P, with a P.
Yeah. It's an unusual name.
Yael
even
Perach.
Lotti.
Perach is to flower. Perach.
Yes.
Yael
And
Perach.
the Lotti, it's either Lotti or Lotti. I'm not. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well,
thank you very much.
She should flower. This operation should bring back restore all of her health, and even greater than it was before.
Amen.
Lessons in Tanya. Epistle. This is the 4th volume, by the way, in the 4th volume. Letter 3 of Geras HaKodesh, page 32. Likutei Amorim. Letter 3 is on page Kuf Dalet. Okay, the kindnesses of Hashem. How does it work? How do we have a relationship, we finite entities, how do we have a relation with the infinite? So he explores an interesting mashal here, and let's get into it. So this is a pasuk from Yeshayahu, from Isaiah. The pasuk is V'yalbish tzedakah kisirion. He dresses himself in tzedakah, charity, tzedakah, Syrian, like a coat of mail. You know, a coat of mail, little chinks of open holes, metal with open holes, a coat of mail that fits the body. He dresses himself in a coat of mail, the kever Yeshua b'rosheh, and a helmet of salvation is on his head. Speaking about Hashem. So v'yilbash, meaning he dresses himself. These are the levushim, the garments. Just as we have 3 garments, start, speed, and deed. He dresses himself in order to come down. Like a person puts on a particular kind of clothing in order to come out in public. So to come out in public, which would mean, for instance, metaphorically, to come from the ayin, which has no definition at all, into channels of definition, he dresses himself, this is the metaphor, with a coat of metal. And V'dorashu Hazal, our sages have interpreted on this, or said about this, Ma Syrian Zeh, just like this coat of mail, kol klippa v'klippa, each and every shell, right, little piece of metal, round piece of metal, mistarefes l'Syrian godol, creates a large coat, flexible, right, and yet protective. Af tzedakah, so similarly, tzedakah, kol pruta v'pruta, each and every round coin, misarefes l'cheshbon godol, adds up to a big amount, very big power in a collection of small things with holes in them, as we'll explain. Pirish, meaning, Shasirian osu kashkashim al nekovim. What are these? This coat of mail is made up of chinks of metal which surround holes, chinks of metal which surround holes. Vehem naginim, and they protect the person. Shelo yikanis chaytz min nekovim, that an arrow doesn't hurt him and enter into those holes. And similarly is the deed of tzedakah. Now he will explain this, having made the statement that this iron, these chinks of metal, which you put on, which God puts on as a garment, there's a certain opening, so there's something's coming through, but at the same time, it's a protector. Okay, Abir Arinian, so let's explain this, the Alter Rebbe says. First of all, we learned this initially in Likutei Moharan in Tanya. Tzedakah, all the mitzvahs are called by Chazal in the writings, in the oral Torah, by the name tzedakah. Tzedakah is emblematic of the entirety of mitzvahs, because tzedakah is you give to the poor, and mitzvahs are what Hashem has given to us to allow us to connect with Him. Just like when you give tzedakah to a poor person, you're creating a connection between him and you. So all the mitzvahs, tzedakah, and the gadol tzedakah, great is tzedakah over all the other mitzvahs. In a certain sense, it encompasses all the other mitzvahs. Shemehen nasim levushim. So through the acts of tzedakah, through every penny that you give, you're making garments. You're making in our mashal a protective coating, a coat of mail. You're making garments to protect lahaneshama, to protect your soul, which the soul is ultimately and originally drawn from the infinite light, or the light Ein Sof, the light which is infinite, or the light of the infinite one, blessed be He, from that level which is called encompassing all worlds, like the circle. So we have these circles of coat of mail. And the origin of the neshama, before it gets to actually be so-called materialized, meaning become a metzias, something in existence, it comes from that level, deep level, which we call the Or Ein Sof, which surrounds, encompasses all worlds. As has been explained in the beginning of Tanya, the difference between filling all worlds, the beams of light which fill all worlds and are responsible for the differentiation of everything, and the all-encompassing light which gives everything a state of being and a state of being enlivened. So that has been explained earlier, the difference between Soiviv and Mamali, surrounding and filling. Okay, so this light surrounds our worlds, and it's aroused, drawing forth of this Or HaSoivev, is drawn from our actions down here below, with, as it says, because the mitzvahs of Hashem are God's Ratzon Elyon Baruch Hu, they are His supernal will. Just like you have your will, for instance, we mentioned this before, the will to move your toe is not invested in the toe. The will to do your toe is invested somewhere in your consciousness, but it comes at the speed of light, or the speed of, whatever the speed of nerve energy is transmitted to the toe immediately without any intermediary. And that's a metaphor for Soiviv Kalalme, that is everywhere equally the same, and it's in this metaphorical way of looking at not taking up any time or space to get there. That's what, and that's the mitzvahs. The mitzvahs are from that place, which is God's will, which is that place of will. And therefore, the mitzvahs encapsulate within them, I don't know if encapsulate is the right word, but they contain within them the Or Ein Sof, which comes from that high place of Soiviv Kol Almin. And the main drawing down of this light, the Or Ein Sof particle, from the infinite one, blessed be He, Hu Levush ve'or makif. It's like a garment, right? Like a garment surrounds you, right? So that's the Or Ein Sof, and that's the mitzvahs. It's like it's an Or Makif, and it surrounds the Yud Spheros, the Abiyah, the 10 spheros of each of the worlds of Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. So from this perspective, think of the spheros as a chain, right? And they are. There's a chain. Chochma, Bina, Das, Hesed, Gebura, Teferes. There's a before and after, and the one before gives to the one after. So that's a metaphor from a Malikal Almin. And the body is organized like that. Head on top, and the head gives to the midos, and the midos give to the action. So you have the head, the heart, and the torso. So that's all about Mamalikal Almin. So this, but invested in that Mamalikal Almin is the Or Ein Sof HaSoiviv Kol Almin. So, let's repeat this. The main drawing down of this infinite light is through a garment and an Or Makif and an encompassing light, a light which encompasses the 10 spheres of the 4 worlds. Hamistalshalis, that's the chain of descent. Ma'ila la'ila, from one cause to an effect and another cause and effect. Hesed influences Bina, Bina influences the midos influence the deed. It's a giver-receiver relationship. That's histalshalis. But injected all through that is the Or HaSoive, which is the Maila, the Seder Histalshis. The Seder Histalshis is cause and effect, umadrega, from one level to another. Hanikras b'shem mamalikal am. And we call that God as He fills all worlds. Pirish, what's it mean? That the Or Ein Sof, that the Soivev, the Or HaSoivev is going to fill the Or Mamali. Pirish. Ki Or Ein Sof Baruch Hu, the infinite light, or the light of the infinite one, blessed be He, mislabish umer b'tei kol histalshalis. That infinite light, that all-encompassing light, the surrounding light, is enclosed and shines within the entirety of Mamalikal Almin, of the Seder Histalshalis, of the Esospheros, of the 10 spheros, of the worlds of Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiya. Vahu, and this, excuse me, this Or Mamali, Vahu, this Or Mamali, who are Matzala Ein Sof, it's what emanates, the Or Mamali is the source of what emanates the 10 spheros of Atzilus. Amostalshal is Libya, which chain down into the lower worlds. Halidei Simsum Otsum, through a great contraction. Amavor Be'etzchayim V'nikra Or Panimi, as explained in the Kabbalah of the Moshe Kadavero, and it's called Or Panimi. So if anybody asks you if you ever take a test, Or Mamali is the same as Or Panimi. And it's radiated downward in the chain of Histalshalis, the result of which is the myriad diversity of everything. But enclosed in it is mislabish, dressed in it, is the Or HaSoivet. Mitzvahs, and in fact, how does the Or HaSoivet get mislabish and clothed in the Or Mamale? This is so al yedei kiyum ha-mitzvahs, through fulfilling mitzvahs, nimshach or makif. That draws down the all-encompassing light from the Ratzon, from the crown, which is above and in a different dimension entirely than filling all worlds in strands and divisions and detail. Umer toicha esesfiras, and this Or Makif, the all-encompassing light, shines through within the 10 spheres of Abiyah. So you have Chochmah to Malchus, Seder Stalshus, filling all worlds, Seder one step after another. But inside that is the Or HaSoivev, which is everywhere present. So that Or Soivev is within the 10 spheres of Abiyah, of the 4 worlds, Umisyachad ima Or Panimi, and is united with the Or Panimi. And this is called, in the shorthand, that now we're going to have a way of really doing a hisbaininess in the very few words, which are called Yichud Kutshebrichu Shechinte. At the beginning of David, B'Shem Yichud Kutshebrichu Shechinte. This is the unity of the Holy One, blessed be He. Holy is the Or HaSoivev, and Shechina, which is the presence, the Or HaMamale. Meshikosa b'mochamata. B'Shem Yichud Kutshebrichu Shechinte is just a short sentence for what we have just described at length, the union of the Or HaSoivev with the Or Mamale, the surrounding light with the immanent. U'me'ha'ora de ha'ora, and from a little bit, a ray of this Or HaMakif now, al yedei tzimtzum rav, through a great contraction, a great condensation, rav, great, nasa levush, a garment is made, lebechinas naran, to the level which is called your soul, the levels of your soul which are called nefesh, ruach, and neshama, which are the levels of the soul invested in the body. So this is a notion. The notion of this is that, and this was expressed last week's mimer on the parsha about Siyam b'mishpat tepoda, the redemption, that the Or HaSoivev surrounds the Or HaMakif, fills the Mamale, fills it all in a way of protecting it, the Or Mamale, so the Or Mamale doesn't escape. And it's like one of the mushals we use was an eggshell around a yolk. Think of the yolk, that's the stuff you're going to eat, right? The yolk and the white, the soft part. That's panimi. You're going to take that into your panemius. Or mamali and or panimi are the same thing. The eggshell, you're not going to eat, but it's protecting it so that the yolk doesn't spill out all over the place. So it's a garment. So al yedei tzimtzum rav, through great contraction, nasa levush, this Or Makif becomes a garment, like the coat of mail, right? Like the coat of mail, protecting the soft body underneath. So the Or HaSoivev becomes a garment to nefesh, ruach, and neshama, the soft part that's invested in the body when the neshama comes and gets invested in the body. The naran shel ha'adam, the nefesh, ruach, and neshama person, the Gan Eden HaTachton, the Elyon, and this accrues to the soul, whether the soul is in the body or whether the soul is in either level of the higher or levels of Gan Eden. There needs to be the Or HaSoivev, the coat of mail, protecting it. The protection, what's it need protection from? Well, when it's in the body, it needs protection because the soul doesn't want to be down here. Right? We're forced to live. And so there's a natural bubbling up of the neshama. The mushal we used last Shabbos was pushing a ball, a rubber ball down into a pool of water. You push it down, but it always wants to pop up. So there has to be the force of your hand holding it there. The force of your hand is the Or HaSoivev, keeping the neshama in the body. Now the neshama, when it's released from the body, it's going to experience things tangibly in ways that it couldn't down here below. But to experience the Or Ein Sof directly is always impossible. It's too much light. It's blinded. So there has to be some protection of the or mamal, of the or soive, of the soul, even as the soul ascends above and above, so that the soul can so that the soul can grasp something that it's capable of grasping of the or Ein Sof. The or Ein Sof, the raw or Ein Sof is always blinding light. So the Tzimtzum accrues. I mean, remember, Olam Haba, the world to come, is an oilam. It's a world. And oilam always implies, oilam is Melashon Helam, concealment. So there's always concealment in order for the soul to have a revelation. One of the marshals uses like sunglasses. It's a concealment for the sake of a revelation, so that you can take the sun and not have your eyes, God forbid, burn out. So this Or HaSoiviv is always operating on the Mamale in order to allow it, to protect it, and to give to it that level of understanding or vision that it can take. Is written in another place. And this is what our sages have said, that the reward of a mitzvah isn't in this world, because you don't see it. But when you go above, there you will see it, but again, through the protective layer of the Or HaSoiviv. Because in this physical world, Ubal Gavul, which is very limited, but Tzimtzum Rav, and there's a very great contractedness, so that, this is the lowest of all worlds, so godliness is the most contracted, Ba'otzim, and the contraction is very strong, Ma'oid, very much. Excuse me. So in this world, there cannot be enclosed even a ray of the infinite, except through the 10 spheros, and Nikra Gufa, which are called the body in the Zohar Kodesh. And the Zohar, he quotes now from the Zohar Kodesh, Chesed, Zorei Yamina, Chesed is the right hand, and Gevura is the left hand. Just as there's no comparison of the body, the physical body, to the soul, so there's also no comparison at all to the Yud Sfiros of Atzilus, which are called the body, right? The 10 spheres give the shape. Chabad is the head, etc., etc. So there's no comparison between those 10 spheros of any world, in relation to the emanator, the supernal emanator, who is the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, right? So just like there's no comparison between the soul and the body, the spheros are the body, right? Chesed is the right of all of creation. So all of creation, at any level, even up into the world of Atzilus, it's still something that's an effusion from the Ein Sof. You can't compare any effusion from the Ein Sof to the emanator, the effuser himself. Even the highest level of wisdom, Chochma of Atzilus, let's say, Shehira Sheson, which is the head, is as if it were actual physical deed, Lagabe Ein Sof Baruch Hu, in relation to the infinite, may he be blessed. In Tanya, I forget which parak, but he gives, in a footnote, he gives a quote from Tillim. In Tillim, there's a line that says, Kulim b'chokhma asiso. You've made everything with chokhmah. And the drush on that the Alter Rebbe brings is that even chokhmah Allah is just like something he made. So there's really no difference between the lowest level of Asiyah and the highest level of Atzilus. They're all just, as it were, fabrications from an infinite source, and the infinite source is ungraspable. So, yeah. The Hila says, therefore, the Masa Tzedakah. Now, in Tzedakah, this is bringing down the Ratzon HaElyon. This is bringing the crown down to earth. This is bringing the temple, bringing the holy temple down here to earth. The holiness, the Kedusha, the Or HaSoiviv. All those words are the same. Kedusha, Soiviv. You're bringing Soiviv into Mamale. And the deed of Tzedakah, which is emblematic and includes all the mitzvahs, so that brings down the Or HaSoiviv, as you said. The Ila says, therefore, the Ma'aseh HaTzedakah, when a person does a deed of charity or kindness, which we say about these acts, these mitzvahs, you can eat of their fruit, but what's enlivening the fruit is not graspable, but you eat from the fruit in this world. So then back to our marshal, yesh nekovim. How does the Or HaSoive penetrate into the Mamale? Through the metaphor, and back to our metaphor, the holes in the pieces of metal, through the holes. So there are marshal. Bilavusha Elyon, in the supernal garment, the supernal coat of mail, Hamakif al Gufa, right? The coat of mail surrounding. On the one hand, it's got protected metal, and then it's got a hole through which the light can come through, the Or HaSoivim. And these are the kelim of the Yud Sfiros, the vessels of the 10 Sfiros. The Hoyer Mahem Hashpia or the Shefa, in order to have an open space, a crack, an open space, for that the light should shine through this light and Shefa, this light and flow from God's Chesed, which is his right arm, right? Chesed Dorei Yamina, the right arm. Oirech Yamim Be'olam Hazer Gashmi. Chesed is giving. It provides long life in this physical world. And then on the other hand, Gavura, which is Oisha, richness and kavod and honor. Midrei smaller from the left side. Bechein B'Tiferes, and each of the every midos have their distinctive function and quality, and in each one is contained through the hole in the coat of mail a light which comes through, which is the Or HaSoivim. And then he goes through Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, and now Hoid, which is splendor, Hoid v'Chodba, and he says it's etc., for each of the midos. Now, wherever there's a tzimtzum, a contraction in God's light, there's an opportunity, there's a certain amount of darkness which is created, right? That's the tzimtzum. So on the one hand, it's a constriction for the sake of a revelation so that the light can get through, but the darkness that's created creates an opportunity for the negative forces also to thrive in the darkness. So in order that doesn't happen, that the chetzonim, the negative forces, don't get an opportunity to suck up, chetzonim lamaila, or the shefa histalshalis, from this light which descends in yored lamata mata and comes down more and more contracted, and olam hazeh gashmi, to the physical world, v'chein lamata, and also down here below, lahogin ala odam, right? The contraction produces darkness, small holes, but the metal also is there to protect. So lachem, down here, in order to protect the person, so this is the twofold function of and the wisdom, let's say, of this metaphor of the garment of mail. Unlike the coat of armor, which is stiff, right? You can't really move in a coat of armor very well. The Syrian, the coat of mail, fits to the body. It can be tailored to the body. It lives on the body and moves with the body. So on the one hand, it allows light to come through. And on the other hand, the metal is protecting from the armor, from the arrows of affliction and the negativity. So, down here below, in order to protect the person and to guard him, and to save him from any negativity, so that's the coat of mail. Now, the light comes through the crack. The light comes through the crack. And in addition, this is the Or Ein Sof, comes through the crack. This is the mitzvah. That big light comes through the crack, the hole. And therefore, since it's constructed this way, this light also is reflected. Like you take sunlight and put a mirror in front of it, and with the reflected light comes back at you, right? And it comes back at you with a harshness, with a strength. So this coat of mail allows the light through, and it reaches down, it comes down here below, and down here below acts like a reflective light, so the light is reflected. Umeir or hamakif, and this or makif, which came down through that, is reflected back. The soisim hanekab, and it literally, but it's metaphorically, fills up the hole. It blocks out the opening by filling up with reflected light of Or HaSoiveh, so that the chetzonim, the negative forces, have no place to suck from. Kihi mibichinas ein sof, because that light which is coming down, and through our actions, right, the arousal from below affects an arousal from below, above. Through that light, the light of the Ein Sof, the Soiv Kol Almin light, is reflected up above. And this is what our sages have said, that this coat of mail, this is what we quoted earlier, Mistarefes lecheshben godel. Each chink, I don't know if that's the right word, each circle in that woven coat of mail adds up to a big amount. Big amount, the Alter Rebbe interprets, is hinted at or hasoiva, the bigness that has no measure. And so the coat of mail allows the ore into the hole, allows the ore and stuff to come through. And that's the Ratzana Elyon, which God's supernal will, which is in the mitzvahs. We do the mitzvah down here below. That's like the mirror reflecting from above, below to above, shines back through the hole and creates a seal, S-E-A-L, of light, so that the tzonium, the negatives, can't get through. Because each and every chink, that's not the right word, every piece of every instance of that round hole with that metal with a hole in it, Mitzarefes lecheshben godel, adds up to a big amount, daika, and the big amount is the or Ein Sof, which comes through and is reflected back. Ki godel Hashem umahulu ma'od, because Pasuk says, "Great is Hashem." This refers to the greatness, which is the or Soive, umahulu ma'od, and he's greatly praised. That's us down here below. B'lei soif v'tachlis u'gavul, and that ultimately, there's no end to that. There's no boundary to that. This is the or Ein Sof, the Ratzon HaElyon, as it comes down through the Tzimtzum and is reflected back up the other way to block any negativity. And that's today's time. Today's a Geras HaKodesh. Any comments, questions?
Such a great metaphor.
Well, you're one of the people on the call who know where that metaphor is used in a song by Leonard Cohen. No?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, you want to say it? I mean, it's just it's a beautiful, beautiful line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Forget. I'll say it. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There's a crack. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets through. That's what he said, and that's really a fairly decent summation of what Alter Rebbe said.
I don't know. That was here.
I have it on this huge board right down below my ceiling that goes from the living room through the dining room. Is that pasuk? Yeah.
Well, not pasuk, that lyric.
That leads it. Yeah, not the pasuk.
The lyric. Right. Okay. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets through. And here we learn is bi-directional. The Or Soviet comes down and it's reflected back to fill up the hole. No negativity. And it weren't for the crack. If it weren't for the crack, the Or HaSoviet couldn't get through. And that's our coat of mail. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets through.
I mean, the coat of mail itself is a wonderful metaphor. Yeah,
it is. Anybody else want to comment?
So our doing mitzvahs, though, reflects the light back to Hashem?
Yes. Our doing mitzvahs is the arousal from below, right? His shining down is the arousal from above. So the downward direction of more soivev through the hole. And then we receive it. We receive his will. That's soivev, right? Ratzon, keser. And then we act according to his will, which is showing our face to the water. And the face that you show to the water is the face now. Then he is reflected back up to him. So that's what he says here. It's a twofold channel, a channel down and up.
Okay.
So a little bit different, hopefully, meaningful in terms of our today light on the mitzvahs that we're doing. That every mitzvah we do, no matter how we take, no matter how much before we learn today, we take it for granted. Then just think about that. We are receiving the Orient Sof and you're reflecting it back into his face. And that, of course, reflects it. So it keeps going. Reflections keep going back and forth. And you're drawing infinite light into the world.
Amen.
So that's a bechein. Anybody else? All right. Mir Hashem, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. And for everyone's prayers. Thank you so much.